Welcome to Courage on the Pitch, brought to you by Wake Orthopedics Urgent Care.
North Carolina champions again!
Here's Megan O'Keefe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Courage on the Pitch. We're on episode 11. Can you believe it? We can make a starting lineup with our 11 episodes. Terrible soccer jokes. Anyway, welcome back to Courage on the Pitch, presented by Wake Orthopedics Urgent Care. Today, we have Rylee Baisden on the show, one of the newer faces to the Courage fam, and super excited to chat with her. She has such an incredible background. So Rylee grew up in California. She played for Pepperdine University, where we obviously mentioned Zoe 101. If you're a fan, you know that's where they were filmed. So chat about her college career there. And then she went to play overseas, played in multiple different countries, and then made her way back stateside, where we chat about her journey to the Courage, as well as her multiple businesses. She's quite the entrepreneur. So stay tuned for our convo in just a little bit. But first, we are going to do a recap of this past week's events, which actually wasn't too much because the Courage were on an international break. But as many of you know, we have several international players. So some highlights from those games: we had Lynn Williams score for the U.S. women's national team. Definitely want to emphasize U.S. because we have multiple other players who are representing their countries. We've got Anharad James. She went on to play with Wales past couple weeks. Denise O'Sullivan and Diane Caldwell played for the Irish national team. Shout out to Sully for scoring a goal. So big congrats to all of our players, as well as Dabinia playing for Brazil. I feel like I'm going to miss someone. There's so many. But we will have them back for our next match on Saturday, the 25th, against Gotham, which we'll preview in just a little bit. But on the men's side, NCFC, they had a game against Chattanooga Red Wolves where they unfortunately lost. So they will hit the pitch again this coming weekend. Again, we'll preview that in a little bit. But without further ado, I know the moment you've all been waiting for, the reason you are here to hear our conversation with Rylee Baisden. So stay tuned for that conversation in just a little bit. Rylee, I'm so excited that you've joined the show. Thanks for being on.
I know, it's been fun. I've been seeing everybody else's, and I'm like, this is so fun.
Well, here is your moment. I've been waiting for you to join as well. So here we are. Well, this past weekend, you guys finally had a break. We had our international break. So I follow your Instagram, love it. And you went to see family. How did you spend your break?
Yeah, it ended up working out great. I'm originally from California, but my parents just moved to Nashville area. So it just happened that my sister was coming into town with her husband and two boys, and I got to see my parents. So we kind of made like a nice little long weekend out of it. We just hung out. It rained all weekend, but it was like so fun to be like inside with my nephews because they're both young. But it was a really fun weekend.
Oh, yeah. I love seeing your nephews all over your social media. I feel like you're like the coolest big aunt ever.
It's the best title, honestly.
Yeah. Are they into soccer as well, or what sort of activities?
They haven't actually done sports yet, but the littlest one, Crosby, he like loves throwing. Like I brought the soccer ball out today, and he like would pick it up and throw it. And I was like, okay, so maybe a goalkeeper, not sure. Loves to throw, but River's into like, he's the 4-year-old, and he is like into anything. He loves being outside. He loves like scootering and biking, but haven't played organized sports yet, but soon. Yeah.
Oh, what cool names too. Crosby and River.
Yeah. And a third one on the way. My sister's doing November with the third boy.
A third boy. Holy cow.
Boy mom.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, you've clearly been an amazing aunt. But so I'm really glad you got to spend that time with your family. I know this season has just been so busy, and I'm just watching you guys from the outside.
Yeah.
But the season seems crazy. But for this podcast, I love being able to highlight, you sort of being a new face on the team, highlighting sort of your journey to the Courage. And where I like to start is, I know you grew up in California. I'm sure you played soccer your whole life, but when was that moment when you realized, okay, I can be a professional? Like, I know I can do this. This is a dream. When did that sort of click for you?
Honestly, not until my super senior year in college. So my 5th year. Like, I feel like I always wanted to play after, but I didn't really know a lot like about, other than the NWSL, like what opportunities there were. So I don't know. It was weird. I had like a really crazy I came in hurt my freshman year, so I had a redshirt year, and it ended up being like such a huge blessing because my 5th year was just like lights out amazing. Like our team was awesome. I played really well. Like I feel like I really came into my own. And then my assistant coach was like, "Do you want to play like beyond college?" And it kind of like put a light bulb in my head, like, oh shoot, like maybe, like, I don't know. Like she's like, "Well, you're definitely good enough." So I feel like she really instilled in me that I could play beyond college. And so I think from then on, I was like very serious about soccer that year, and just everything I did from like eating to like social life, like everything I did was super focused. And then entered the draft, didn't get drafted. So I went overseas and I played overseas in Sweden and France. I played like a month in Taiwan for the World University Games, which is basically like a mini Olympics for like people who are still in college. So that was super fun. We had like a hodgepodge team of like all D1 athletes for the soccer team at least, but normally they'll bring over like a full team. Like the UCLA volleyball team was representing men's US. So like usually they had it, but like that. But because soccer was in season in college, they couldn't come over then. So it was just like, okay, hey, like, do you want to come play in Taiwan? And I was like, oh my gosh, like Taiwan. Like,
wow.
We were there for like a month and a half, and that was like the coolest experience ever. And like, we never trained together. Our team didn't, because we just like got thrown together because they didn't have a women's soccer team.
Wow.
But it was just like awesome. It was like we had like the village and like the eating hall, and like, I don't know what the actual Olympics are, but like from the people that have gone to the Olympics say like it's very similar, and it was like the coolest experience. And then I played in Australia after that, and then came back here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So much to unpack right there. Wow.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic Spark Notes version, by the way.
Yeah.
your like journey to the courage, but wow. Taiwan, that's super cool. But starting back in college, so you went to Pepperdine and you were roommates with Lynn, right?
Yeah.
All 4 years, or were you guys different grades?
No, she's a year older than me. So we lived together her senior year, my junior year. And then when she graduated, I had to find a new roommate.
Oh, well,
yeah. So we lived off together 1 year. So it was awesome.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, whenever I think about Pepperdine, you probably get this all the time. Zoe 101.
Yep.
Okay.
I was just talking to Carrie about that the other day, because it's like that show makes like the dorms seem like giant, and they're not. But the campus is very beautiful. Like our soccer field overlooked the ocean. Like it was ridiculous.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I was such a fan of the show, and then I literally went to visit Pepperdine just for the sole sake of saying, like, I was where they filmed Zoe 101.
For sure. Oh, yeah. It's a claim to fame.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. Okay. So back to the soccer things for a hot sec. So it was kind of your assistant coach who really inspired you, or at least put that like empowerment in you that you could do this. So you first went overseas right after school. You know, I can tell you're very close with your family. What was it like having to all of a sudden go to another country, start pursuing this dream, and being so far away from family?
Yeah, it was a big move, I think. But honestly, like looking back, I think it was the best move, especially like in my early 20s. Like I was just so attached to being home and near family. Like it was a huge growing moment for me, and like just time to be away and like learn things, and like have to make friends, and like have to communicate with people who don't speak English, and like just so many growing moments where like I wouldn't have experienced them if I got drafted and lived in the States still. And so I think like, even though it wasn't ideal, like huge shots of the ego to obviously not get drafted and then be like, okay, well, I guess I'll go overseas. But it was the best thing ever. And then I think just being overseas in general, I learned a ton about myself. I met amazing people, and just felt a bit more cultured. Because like, other than like the surrounding countries like that a lot of people in America travel to, I didn't go to Europe. Never took like a giant trip or anything, because I was always playing growing up. And in college, like summer was time to work out and do your packet, and then you come back early for school. And so there was never really a window to travel or experience anything. So to be able to play and be able to travel, it was just like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I bet. What were some of the biggest differences, I guess, culturally or soccer wise? Or were there any like crazy culture shock moments where you're like, oh my gosh?
Yeah, in France, like I went to a place where they like only spoke French, and I took Spanish in college like all 3 years. And so I knew nothing. I didn't know a lick of French before I got there, and it was tough. Like I lived with an American, so that was great, but like
Yeah.
once we stepped outside of our apartment, like we had to figure out everything. Like didn't have like an international phone, so I was always on Wi-Fi and like had
Oh
to
my
download
gosh.
maps and like Google Translate, and like
Yep.
it was just like always like a very I don't know, like an intense feeling when you weren't like on buses and like transport, like everything like on signs, like I couldn't read signs. So like I
Yeah.
got into French class very early because I was like,
Mhm.
I will not be able to get around if I don't even know just like the basics.
Right.
So we took a French class and we walked like a mile to this French class every week. And me and my roommate went, and it was like so great because then I could at least understand
Mhm.
and somewhat have like a little bit of knowledge of like what I'm doing and where to
Yeah.
go. But yeah, I just think like not being able to communicate with your team and like bantering, like I really like I hated that. It was like
Yeah.
cool because I always had at least one American on the team. Like you normally have like three internationals, but yeah, the like not speaking the same language is tough, and like you just like miss out on stuff. Like I know being here, like we joke around so much, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I just wasn't a part of that in France, and I like obviously am very outgoing and talk a lot, and so that to me,
Mhm.
I was just like, cool, like I can't
Funny
say anything
guys.
because I don't even
Hilarious.
know what you're saying. Like, so yeah, that part to me was probably the most difficult, but it was still really fun.
Yeah, I mean, what an interesting challenge too, especially when it comes to a sport that requires so much communication. And then, like you said, like that's how you bond with your teammates are those
For sure.
jokes and those inside jokes. And sometimes when you join a new team, even if they're speaking English, you're like, you have all these inside jokes I don't even understand.
Totally. I know. Yeah, I was lucky because there was a few girls on the team that were learning English in school, and so they like
Oh,
were kind of like a translator for me and the other Americans, which was like the best thing ever. But people who are like learning English like in other countries aren't super confident, and they think like, "Oh, I don't want to speak it because I want to mess up." But like they're actually so good, and I'm like, "You're way better than I am at French. Like you can do the talking, I swear."
yeah.
So,
Oh, wow. Well, that
yeah.
is very helpful. So, but eventually you end up going to Australia, right?
Mhm.
Where they do speak English, just very thick
Yes.
accents.
Yes.
So, how long were you in Australia for?
I was there for 2 seasons. So I played in the 2nd division, and then I played in the 1st.
And I was looking up some of your stats, and
Mhm.
I feel like what did you feel a sense like that's where things really started to click for you? I feel like you had all those other experiences in other countries, and then you get to this place and you seem to really flourish on some of those the teams that you played with.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was like a sense of freedom of, being comfortable and able to talk to people, and like I lived with the host family and they were amazing. Like I don't know if it was just like a combination of like all these great things happening at once, and I just like then thrived on the field, or I'm not really sure what clicked, but like
Yeah.
I just had so much fun, and like I was never really like thinking about like, oh, I made a bad pass, or I made like I just like played, and it was like the most free I've ever played. And yeah, I just feel like when you have fun and you're like not really thinking about all the details,
Mhm.
you you know, think great things happen. And I think
Yeah.
it was just like a beautiful place. Like it was just like all positives when I was there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like if I was in a country where they're speaking another language and I mess up, I'm like they're definitely talking about me
for
behind my
sure.
back.
For sure. You're like, I have no idea what they're saying, but it's definitely about me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were in Australia, you were reconnected with Lynn at that point because she was playing over there at the same time, or how did that
Yeah,
reconnection
so
occur?
she wasn't actually playing yet. She was over there visiting Marley,
Right.
and I
Oh
had like a
yeah.
free weekend, so I met them in Melbourne, and like it was great
Oh
because like us three went to college together, and it was just
yeah.
like never would have thought we were gonna reunite in Australia, let alone like be able to like go to the beach and like see Marley's house, and
Mhm.
it was just so fun, and like it's just cool where like soccer takes you and allows you to
Right.
like see people. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like that piece of home too, because you went through college with her and then you get to see her while you're on the other side of the world, which makes me think about like having to communicate with your family who's back stateside.
Uh-huh.
What was the time change like and how did you stay connected?
Yeah, Australia is actually easier, even though the time difference is a lot longer. Like it's a bigger gap, but it's almost better because you can talk in the morning and then you can also talk in the evening.
Oh, yeah.
So it actually worked out great. But when I was in Europe was actually when it was hardest, because like that 9-hour difference, I think it was 7 or 9 hours, was like almost like too short, where you were like, I only had like a 1 or 2 hour window. And like, if you didn't talk that day, then like it was not till the next day, you know? So yeah, Australia time difference is way better.
Yeah. So then you're in Australia and you make it to the Courage, but through that experience, remind me again, it was during COVID, and so I don't know if something had happened with your league in Australia or how this opportunity with the Courage presented itself, but all of a sudden mid-pandemic you're moving back to the US. How did that all go down?
Yeah, it was wild. I was ending W League season and they end around like February or March. And I was leaving like the week before like the world shut down. And so I was flying back, like not really knowing, didn't have a team I was coming back to. Like I hadn't ever been in the NWSL before. So I was going to trial at Houston, and I had like a week in between like trialing to like go see my family and then go straight to Houston. So it was just like so chaotic. Flew back, went to Houston, was in preseason for like 4 days. And then they were like sent everybody home because everything shut down. So I went back. My dad was living in an apartment at that time in Nashville before they like bought their house. And so it was just me and my dad living in this apartment. My mom was still back in California. And I was just working out every day, like hoping that like I was going to get either called back to Houston or that like my agent could find a different team. So it was just like a lot of unknown when it first happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my boyfriend's in Australia. When am I ever going to see him again? Like, I don't have a team. Like, it was just like the biggest like limbo for me. And I just was like, you know what? We're just going to be patient. We're going to keep touching the ball, like stay fit, like something's going to happen. And then I was working on getting my certification in personal training. And so like, that's kind of what I put my focus towards. Cause I was like, well, I need to do something. Like if this is like the end of my soccer career, just because like the pandemic is happening, then like, I got to have a plan B, like whatever. So I started studying and doing that. So that's how like I started like my small business. And then I get a call randomly from Paul Riley. And I had been like chatting with Lynn, like probably a week or two prior, just like catching up. And we were like FaceTiming, and then Paul called me, and I didn't know the number because it was a New York number. And I was like, I know nobody in New York. Like, I don't know a single person who lives in New York. So didn't answer it. And then I like was doing something, and then I look and I'm like, a voicemail. Like, I literally don't know anybody. So I like listened to the voicemail, and he's like, hey, like, Lynn Williams told me about you. Like, give me a call back. Like, we obviously have the fall series coming up. And I just was like, what? Like the Courage. Also, like Paul Riley just called me and I didn't even answer, first of all, rude. And like let it go to voicemail. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, like I was freaking out. So I like called him back, and he like told me like if you want to come to the fall series, and like wrote up a quick contract with my agent, and then I was there. It was like the weirdest thing. It was just like so quick. I left in like 2 days after he had called me, because he was like, you need to get here. And then fall series came and went quick, and I lived with Lynn when I was here the first time, which was so fun. And then went home and then re-upped my contract for the year. So that was like just like the craziest chain of events.
Yeah, no kidding. And I like hearing you talk about that period of time at the beginning of the pandemic before all the Courage stuff happened, and you just being in this limbo place, and for you to even say like there was a chance that your career was over and you were like not ready for that, but you like were ready to make a plan. But how did you face that mentally? Like during the pandemic, I know everyone had those like mystery moments of like, I don't know what my life is going to look like, but how did you keep going, keep training, keep yourself focused?
Yeah, it was definitely like a very numbing time, because I think I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even have the option to go overseas. Like that's not an option. Like we're not traveling. Like, and that was always like in the back of my head, like if NWSL doesn't work out when I come home, definitely can go back overseas. Like, and so then I was like, oh my gosh, like my plan B is now not here. So got to find a different avenue. And I just feel like I've always really enjoyed working out and like helping people. And so I was like, how do I do that? Like, how do I get into that post soccer? And so I met some people who actually lived next door to my dad at the apartment complex, who was like a personal trainer. She was like an athletic trainer, not an athletic trainer, a sports and conditioning trainer for a local high school. And like, she randomly saw me like on the run, and she was like, "What are you training for?" And like, at that time, like, I wasn't really training for anything. I was just like, "Oh, well,
Like,
I
don't
play
ask.
soccer. I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to stay fit." Like, she was like, "Oh, well, if you ever need to like have a gym to work out, like, you're more than welcome to like come by." And like, I don't know this lady. So I was like, "Okay, like, thanks."
Sure.
But she was lovely. Like, everyone in Nashville are like very overly nice, and I just wasn't used to that. And so I ended up going out, and she was training a bunch of like D1 soccer girls. And so like, I trained with them, like, got to touch the ball with people who like actually play. And like, that's what like kept me in it for a while. But then I was like, okay, if we're transitioning out, like, I need to like get serious. So then I just got my certification, and yeah, like one thing led to another. And I just, that was kind of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually did the same thing. I got NASM CPT over the pandemic, because it was like that mystery of like, I don't know what my life's going to look like. Might as well do something. But so you have that. And then you like created your own training book for your,
so
I saw this.
I created like an ebook, because I was like, everyone is working out at home. Like, everyone has zero access to gyms. Like, a lot of people don't have equipment. And that's like what I was dealing with too. So I was like, okay, like, time to get creative. And I just like wrote out like workouts that I had been doing, along with like obviously learning how to build a program in the certification. So I made an ebook and made it accessible online, got my boyfriend and I like got my website up and running, and started doing like live workouts on Instagram, and like people were loving it. So I was like, okay, like maybe we're tapping into something that's like a need. So that's kind of how it all fell into place. And then it's been kind of hard like right now in season, because like I obviously can't be doing like a ton of like live workouts while we're in season and training. So trying to
phone up while you guys are working out, like, okay, just follow me.
I'm like, here I am live at practice. Like,
everyone's like dying in the warm up. Like, okay, I can't do this.
Yeah, everyone's like, can you put your phone away? Like, what are you doing? But that's really how it like came alive, and still need to navigate how I do it in season, but hopefully like a 2.0 ebooks coming out soon. So,
well, you have that, speaking of juggling things, and then you also have your like photography, videography business there. So are they intertwined, or what is that one more focused on? I know it was a passion, but then you turned it into a business.
Yeah. So between seasons, I think between Sweden and France, or France and Australia, I was home for kind of an extended amount of time, like longer than just an off season. And I got my drone license, and I like was just kind of doing it for fun at the beginning. And then my mom was into like houses and stuff. And she was like, people like want this, like drone footage is like so needed right now. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, well, maybe I can intertwine it with like my photography stuff. So then I did like Rylee B Productions for like kind of like meshing the two together to do like videography and photography, because I can't pick one. I love both, and they're just so different. And then I had a friend who like randomly had their videographer pull out for their wedding. So that's why I actually had to get my license, because you can't fly and like commercially without your license. And so ended up doing that, and then just had been doing like a bunch of like side photo shoots on, again, another small business. So
well, I was just going to ask, I feel like so many people have these passions and these ideas, but you actually hit the ground running and turned it into a reality with your personal training thing, and then as well as with the photography side of it. So I think that is so impressive. But first of all, how do you juggle it all? And second of all, like, how has having these other passions outside of soccer sort of helped you with your soccer career?
Yeah, I think that's like a huge one for me. I think like having things that like, one, I'm good at off the field. I think I don't know, gives me a bit more purpose, because I think that's one thing, like, I know coming out like of your career, like you need to have other things than that you're good at than other than soccer. And so I kind of wanted to like bridge that gap early on so that it's not like a huge hurdle to get over when that does come. So for me, I was just kind of like, let's ease the like closing of the soccer chapter pain into like something else. And my mom actually is a photographer as well. So she was the one who like, she had her own small business. So I think that's kind of what like spurred it for me to come alive, because I saw she could do it out of our, out of our house, and like, she was good. And so I was like, oh, okay. So like, you don't need like an office and like a whole thing. Like you can literally like have your small business out of your home. And my sister also has her own company. She runs a hat company for toddlers and adults. So weirdly, we're all very entrepreneurial, but I like don't really know how or when that all came about. But I feel like my mom kind of led the way, and then we just kind of found our passions and did the same thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So she's sort of like inspired it all there outside of soccer, which I think, like you said, is so important to have, because I spoke with Merritt Matthias about this the other week about injuries, and either your career can end on natural terms whenever your career's over, or could end abruptly, but to have a passion outside of it, and to also just have like an identity outside of being a soccer player is just really important, and people don't realize the importance of that. So
yeah,
I respect you for having all of those outside passions.
yeah.
What are your future goals in terms of, off the field or on the field?
Yeah. I personally like really, I like love photography. It's more, I think I know I said I like love photography and videography, but videography just, I think it's the coolest. Like, I think it captures so many memories, thoughts, emotions, and it feels like you're there. And so I think, it's like TVs and movies, like you connect with it so much. And like, it's nothing to downplay photos. Like, I think photos are amazing as well. But I just think all the pieces that I've like been involved in, either like directing or producing, I just like, it's something like you feel, and like you love like the other side being able to feel something as well, whether they're in the piece or they're watching the piece. And so for me, I would love to somehow combine sports with videography, and that would be like the ultimate like dream.
Oh, that's awesome. Look out, world. We got Rylee B Productions coming in.
Coming in hot.
Well, I love it. Well, I'm so thankful for you for sharing your story. Obviously, getting to the Courage was such a wild ride. So thank you for sharing all of that, as well as your off the field passions. But before we wrap up, got a little rapid fire game that we're going to play. All right. So just a couple of quick hits, questions here. 1 or 2 words or whatever your heart desires. No rules. I have no rules on the show. So anyway, my producer Dennis might disagree, but rules are for.
He's like, keep it 1 or 2, Megan. Come on.
All right, next 45 questions. Here we go. Okay, ready. We've got, just started out. Who was your soccer idol growing up?
Mia Hamm.
Nice. Your go-to coffee order?
Oat milk latte.
All right. Recent show you've binged?
Ted Lasso.
Nice. Just watched the most recent episode last night. Very good. Most used emoji. Can you act it out?
What do I use a lot? I honestly throw around hearts like it's nothing. Like, it's so bad. Like, changing the colors, because I feel like that changes the meaning a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So, there you go.
I'm like, I felt so special. Heart. Apparently she uses them all the time.
Yeah, seriously, just throwing around love. Geez.
Love it. No, we need it. What's a go-to song you're really into right now to get you hyped up for the game?
Oh, hyped up. I've been into oldies lately. Carson and I have been listening to a bunch of oldies. I was listening to what's the song I was listening to recently? I was just in the car. Like Shania Twain. Like just like old school, like just upbeat, feel good.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been playing it in the locker room as well. So like that's been fun. I feel like it's changing it up from just like mainstream.
Yeah. Love that. All right, couple more. Best place you've ever traveled to, which I know you've been a lot.
I loved Lisbon, Portugal. It was just like so colorful. The food was amazing. Like it was just like a fun city.
I'm starving thinking about food anywhere. Which brings us to our next question. Your go-to celebratory meal after a big win. What are you grubbing out on?
I love like a good burger after like a giant workout or game.
Yeah.
Which is like probably not good, but I like love burgers and fries.
Coach Rylee talk over here.
Yeah, like I'm not like encouraging that at all.
Treat yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, last two, put your photography hat on. Most Instagrammable spot in the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Cary.
Ooh, at the top of the Dillon, there's like this, it's right above like Barcelona line and like Urban, and you can take, it's only during office like hours, like I think it's like 8 to 5 where it's like open, but if you go up, I think it's 9 or 10 floors, you can like see all of the city, and it is so cool. Like people like do workout classes up there, and it's like so dreamy. Yeah.
That is a hidden gem. I did not know about that.
It's a good one. But then if you go after hours, like if you want to go at like sunset, you just go up to like the parking lot, and there's like a spot in like the corner where you can still see the city. That's where I took like those Jersey photos.
Yes. Those were awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Great tip. I live right by there. I should go. Okay.
Yeah.
Last one. Wrap it up. Keep it up on that high note. A highlight of playing for the Courage so far for you personally.
Oh, just the people. I think it's just like such an amazing environment, and on and off the pitch, like the girls, the staff, you guys, like everyone who's a part of the Courage, I feel like it's just such a good culture here, and it's like fun waking up and coming to work.
Love that. All right. That is a beautiful way to wrap it up. All right.
Wrapping it up.
Shout out to Rylee for coming on the show. Check her out on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
At Rylee_BEE.
You heard it.
You heard it here first.
Her content is phenomenal. So check her out. Thanks. Shout out to Rylee for being on the show. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up on Courage on the Pitch.
All right. Thanks, Rylee, for joining the show. This coming weekend, we'll preview our matches. We got 2 games. Courage will take on New York Gotham FC on Saturday on the road in New Jersey, and that'll be on Paramount Plus at 3:00. Courage are in 3rd place, so we got playoffs coming up soon. Every result, every goal counts, so don't miss out on that exciting matchup. And then on Sunday, our men's side, NCFC, will be at home. We got Bark in the Park. We got dogs invited to the game, so certainly don't want to miss out on that matchup. Get your tickets now. Get your dog tickets and your human tickets for the game on Sunday, and that's against North Texas at 2:00. And if you can't make the game, I'm so sorry, you're going to miss out on all the pups, but the game will be aired on ESPN+. So that's the weekend coming up. Thank you all so much for tuning into the show. Remember, don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, share the show with your friends and on social media, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Courage on the Pitch is sponsored by Wake Orthopedics Urgent Care. Courage on the Pitch with Megan O'Keefe is part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows available every Thursday on WRALSportsFan.com or wherever you get your podcasts.